Golden Radio Hour.
In just a moment, X-1. But first, some of the funniest situations you've ever witnessed occur every Wednesday night when the devilish imagination of MC Jack Bailey gets to work on NBC's Truth or Consequences. You won't believe it until you hear it, so listen in tomorrow. Then another laugh session is in store later on with the wise and witty Groucho Marx as he and contestants play You Bet Your Life, while the melodic note in your Wednesday evening schedule is music and fun on Airtime with Giselle McKenzie.
Countdown for blast off. X-5, 4, 3, 2, X-1, fire. From the far horizons of the unknown come transcribed tales of new dimensions in time and space. These are stories of the future, adventures in which you'll live in a million, could be years, on 1,000 maybe worlds. The National Broadcasting Company, in cooperation with Galaxy Science Fiction Magazine, presents
X minus 1.
Tonight, the Mark Clifton story, Star Bright.
Well, it's finally happened. I've known it would for a long time now. That's why I'm writing this, in the hopes that you'll understand and not think me mad. Whatever the outcome, I hope you will not judge me too harshly for what I've done or failed to do.
Mr. Holmes. Mr. Holmes.
Come in. Oh, hello, Chief.
I just wanted to let you know, sir, that we're doing everything we can to find the children.
Yes, I'm sure you are.
We've got 300 men out combing the woods for them. The Army base has volunteered another 100 men, and we've sent an all-points bulletin to every police unit in the country.
Fine.
I just wanted to check and make certain our description is accurate. Your little girl, Star, was wearing a blue dress and white sandals. Is that right?
That's right.
And she is how old?
6 years old.
And the little Howell boy, how old was he?
7, I believe, yes. 7.
Uh-huh, thank you. Well, I'll be in touch with you.
Well, that's very good of you, Chief. Oh, by the way,
yes.
Mr. and Mrs. Howell, how are they taking it?
Well, they're pretty upset, naturally. Mr. Howell, he's out with the men searching.
Yes, I know.
Mrs. Howell's in the car outside.
Ruth is outside? Why didn't she come in?
Well, she said she'd rather not.
Oh, I see.
Do you, Pete?
Well, Mrs. Howell, I thought...
I decided to come in. I'm not going to sit on my feelings any longer.
Now, Mrs. Howell...
No, I have to say this. Pete, Bill and I have been your neighbors for almost a year now. Our children have been almost inseparable.
I know that.
Then how can you just sit here writing letters when they may be lost somewhere or in trouble? Why aren't you out with Bill and the rest of them searching?
I can't. Ruth, I know how you feel. Please try to understand. I intend to help find Bobby and Star, but I must do this first.
Why? What's so important about
Ruth,
it?
I'm sorry.
Sorry? Then why don't you act like a man? You're inhuman.
Please.
I don't ever want to see you or speak to you again. Ever.
Perhaps you won't.
What was that, Mr. Holmes?
Nothing. Chief, if you don't mind, I'd like to be alone for a moment.
Okay, Mr. Holmes. I'll keep in touch.
How can I tell them? How can I make them understand? I write this to you because they must be made to understand somehow, but I have to begin at the beginning. I think I first noticed it one evening when Star was 3 years old. I was in my reading chair going over some work. Star was sitting on the floor in the circle of light with her blunt-nosed scissors and scraps of paper. Her long silence made me glance down.
And then we glue this together, Put a line here and there.
Star,
Like that.
Star,
What is it, Daddy?
can I see what you've made?
Uh-huh.
Well. It's quite a coincidence.
What?
You know what they call a piece of paper joined together with a half twist like this?
Nope.
It's called a Mobius strip.
You mean somebody already made one?
A man named Mobius, mathematician, long time ago.
Did he know you can put a line on it like that so it has one side all joined?
Yes, he did. Someday I'll tell you what it means.
Now do it.
What?
Tell me about a Mobius strip.
Very complicated.
Then read me about it.
Oh, you wouldn't understand, honey.
Read me anyway.
Okay, young lady. But I warn you, it'll be like one of those nonsense rhymes. At least, I hope it will. At 3 years, a child shouldn't have enough functioning intelligence to put together a Mobius strip. I had known for some time now that Star was an exceptionally bright child. Just how bright, I had no idea. Not until I began to read to her from an advanced physics book, The Theory of the Mobius Strip. To the power of infinity. Now then, are you sufficiently mixed up, young lady?
Daddy, you know what?
What?
You read too slow. You say a word, then I think a long time, then you say another word.
Oh, I see. Just, what would you have me do about it?
Well, teach me to read. Then I can think as quick as I want.
The word is quickly. It's an adverb.
Oh, Daddy, really? You pick on such unimportant things. I want to learn to read.
Okay. When would you like to begin?
Right now, tonight.
Before she went to bed that evening, my daughter was able to read. In the months that followed, a great deal happened. Some of our friends, like Jim Petrie, have dropped in and been amused to see her on the floor, rapidly turning the pages of an encyclopedia as big as she is. Sit down, Jim.
Oh, thanks.
Star, aren't you going to say hello to Uncle Jim?
Hello.
I see she's taken to looking at the pictures in the encyclopedia, huh?
Oh, yeah, yes. Come on in the library, Jim. I'd like to talk to you privately.
Yeah, sure thing.
Bring your drink, huh?
Okay.
I'll shut the door here.
Why all the secrecy?
Sit down. Now, Jim, we've been friends, you and I, ever since engineering school.
So?
Neither of us have ever mentioned it, but one of the reasons we were drawn together is because both of us have IQ somewhere up in the genius ratings.
Oh, I think it was more than that.
Well, that played a part. It isn't easy to be exceptional in a world which regards mediocrity as the only behavior above suspicion.
Well, we all have to live with our afflictions. Yours and mine is a quick mind in a dull environment.
What would you do, Jim, if you were a parent, as I am, whose wife had died, as Eleanor did, and you discovered that your only child was, well, afflicted with a fantastically brilliant mind?
Star? Oh, come on, Pete. Any little girl who's content just to look at the pictures in the encyclopedia.
Jim.
I mean, after
Jim.
all. What?
She wasn't looking at the pictures.
Huh?
She was reading the pages.
What? But she was turning them as fast as humanly possible.
She was reading them.
What?
I know. I've tested her. She not only remembers everything, she understands the concepts. She even gets impatient with them.
Well, have you measured her?
Well, I've given her IQ tests, aptitude tests, reaction tables, all the paraphernalia for measuring something we know nothing about.
And?
Tests don't work.
How do you mean?
Well, either the tables are screwy or Star's beyond all measurement.
Pete, are you sure you're not projecting this? I mean, isn't it possible that a few accidental...
Daddy,
Yes, honey.
I got lonely.
Okay, come on in.
Uncle Jim, would you read me a story?
Why don't you read your own story?
Because I'm only 3, and 3-year-olds can't read.
And so she had found the answer to her affliction by herself. Conformity. She had already learned to conceal her intelligence. So many of us break our hearts before we learn that. When Star was 4 years old, according to state law, her mind had developed enough so she could attend nursery school.
Hi, Daddy.
Hi, honey. Did you, like nursery school?
Oh, yes, it was fun.
What'd you learn today?
Not much. I tried to cut out paper dolls, but the scissors kept slipping.
Now, look, Star, don't overdo it. That's as bad as being too quick. The idea is that everybody has to be just about standard average. That's the only thing people will tolerate. It's expected that a little girl of 4 should know how to cut out paper dolls properly.
Oh. I guess that's the hard part, isn't it, Daddy? To know how much you ought to know.
Yeah. That's the part I always found hard when I was young.
It's really all right. I let one little girl show me how to cut them out, so now she likes me. She just took charge of me and told the other kids they should like me, too. So they did, because she's the leader, even if she is one of the stupids.
What?
The stupids. That's the trouble with you, Daddy. You don't grasp things right away. That's because you're only a tween.
Between? I assume that means an in-between?
That's right. You're in between a stupid and a bright.
And you're a bright.
Yes. I made those names up when I was very little.
How little?
Oh, about 6 months old.
The thoughts began to whirl around in my head after that one. A small fear kept growing inside me. How profound was this little imp that was staring up at me? How much did she understand already? Even as the thought formed, I learned the final horrifying fact about my little girl.
It's all right, Daddy. Don't be afraid of me.
Well, how did you know that I was thinking anything like that?
Well, I just figured it out.
Star.
Yes, Daddy?
Now, I want you to answer me honestly when I ask you this next question, will you?
Yes.
Star. Can you read people's minds? Are you a telepath? Well?
Yes, Daddy.
I thought so. You read my mind just now, didn't you?
Yes.
Now, I'd like to know something else.
All right.
Can you teach me to do it?
You're already learning it, Daddy. The trouble is you're so slow you didn't even know you were learning.
Oh, I see.
Daddy?
Yeah?
You know what I wish?
What do you wish?
Well, nothing.
All the same, I knew exactly what she was wishing. She was wishing for a companion whose mind would match her own. You see, I was becoming telepathic. Just a minute. Well, hello.
Is your little girl home?
Yeah, she's upstairs. Who are you?
I'm Robert.
Robert who?
Robert Howell. My mother and father moved next door yesterday.
Oh, well, come in, Robert.
I'd like to play with your little girl.
How'd you know I had a little girl?
Oh, I just know.
I see. And how old are you?
I'm 6.
Well, I'll ask Star to come downstairs. I'm sure she'll be glad to see you.
Yes, she will.
Tell me, Robert, are you a tween or a bride?
Oh, I'm a... What did you say, Mr. Holmes?
Nothing. I didn't have to say it. I could read his thought. He was a bride, and it was no accident that he and his parents had moved next door. Somehow, Star had managed to make contact with him, and they had arranged the whole thing. A father is prepared to lose his daughter eventually, but not so soon, not so terribly soon. Coming. Oh, hello, Ruth. Something wrong?
No, I was just looking for Bobby. I thought he was over here playing with Star.
Well, I thought they were over at your place.
I don't understand it.
I've noticed that they've been disappearing for a couple of hours almost every afternoon.
Well, I suppose they'll turn up again. They know better than to cross the street by themselves. They're too little for that. If they come here first, tell them to come over and have some milk and cookies.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Oh, by the way, this must belong to your Star.
Oh, what's that?
Oh, some sort of coin or medal or something. I found it out in the backyard after Star and Bobby were playing. It looks brand new.
Let's have a look.
Oh, is something wrong?
Did you say you found this in your backyard?
Yes. What is it?
I don't know.
Well, I've got to get back. Bill will be getting home for dinner soon, so see you later.
Yes.
Hello?
Jim,
Yes.
do you have a portable spectrophotometer?
Well, sure, we've got a dozen here at the lab.
Pack one up and get over here right away, will you?
Well, Pete, I don't quit till 5.
Look, do as I say, huh? It's important.
Well, okay.
Well?
Let me check the amount of radioactivity again.
You've checked it 4 times.
That's about it.
Okay. What's your opinion of this coin?
Well, first of all, let me say this. It's the real McCoy.
And?
Also, it doesn't exist.
Makes sense.
Look, Pete, that coin is pre-Egyptian. It's hand-cast. It's made out of one of the oldest bronze alloys, one that was lost 4,000 years ago.
So it's 4,000 years old.
It is and it isn't.
What do you mean?
Listen, Pete, old coins show wear. The edges get rounded with handling. The surface oxidizes. The molecular structure changes, crystallizes. Pete, this coin is authentic, and yet it's brand new. It might have been struck off yesterday.
You realize, of course, that that's impossible.
Where'd you get it, Pete?
I don't know. I think the kid's got it.
Star?
Yes.
How?
I don't know. I'm almost afraid to think.
Well, why not ask her?
She isn't around. She and Robert are off playing somewhere.
Well, do you know where?
No, Oh, Jim, it's just too fantastic. It isn't possible.
I haven't said a word.
I know what you're thinking.
As a matter of fact, I was thinking something fantastic. How did you guess?
I just guessed. Jim, let's find those kids right now.
Okay.
Star! Robert! Let's try the playroom. Star? Robert? Not in here. Let's try back here.
I hear something.
What?
Pete, it's coming from the room we were just in.
That's impossible. There's no place they could have hidden.
I'm going to open that door.
Peekaboo, Uncle Jim.
There they were, in the middle of the playroom, holding hands, a little shamefaced, a little defiant. Star, Robert, where have you been? Now, I know you weren't in this room a few seconds ago, and there are no windows you could get through. Well?
It's nothing, Daddy. We just went a little ways.
That is not answering me. Where did you go?
You see, Star, we've found this coin.
Come on.
I shouldn't have to tell. You're both just tweens.
Star, I'm still your daddy. Even Brights have feelings about their parents. Now.
I tried to ESP you, Daddy.
Does she mean extrasensory perception?
Yes.
You just don't ESP good, Daddy. Robert does it very nicely. He can always find me when I hide.
That's 'cause you don't have much imagination.
I do, too.
Yeah, but you always have to look at a book to ESP what's in it so you leave an ESP smudge. I just look at where you left the smudge, and I go to that place, and that time, and there you are.
Oh, but that's cheating.
It isn't. You just haven't got imagination. You can't teleport yourself to a place that hasn't been.
I can, too. What about the moon people? They haven't been yet.
Oh, Star, they have, too. Not for your daddy, they haven't, but for the things from Arcturus. The moon people were about 10 million light years ago.
Now, wait a minute, kids. Hold on. Jim, have you been listening to this?
I think I heard it.
Now, look, kids. You're either playing a big joke on us older folks, or you've actually figured out a way to travel to places in the past. Right?
And in the future, too, Daddy.
Star, could you tell us how you do it?
It would be easier if I could ESP it to you.
Well, just pretend we're stupids and tell us in words.
Well, you remember the Mobius strip?
I remember. She made it about a year ago, Jim.
Well, you join the ends of a strip of paper with a half twist to make one surface. Then you take a sheet and give it a half twist so you can join the edges together all over.
That's Klein's bottle.
Oh, you know about that.
Yes, we know that. Go on.
Well, then you take a cube. You imagine a cube, and you twist it.
Tesseract?
Shh. Go on, Star.
and you ESP the twisted cube all together the same way you did Klein's bottle. Now, if you do that big enough all around you so you're sort of folded into it, you can teleport yourself any place you want to go. And that's all there is to it.
Jim, what do you think?
I need another drink, Pete. A big one.
That's all there was to it. The line, the plane, the cube, those were Euclidean physics. The Mobius strip, the Klein bottle, the twisted cube, those were Einsteinian physics. Well, I was pretty advanced in both, but I'd have to do some heavy thinking to really grasp it. Meanwhile, the two little kids stood there staring at us.
Star, Robert, can you tell us some of the places you've been?
All over, Uncle Jim. The Romans and the Egyptians and places like that.
Is that how you got the coin?
Uh-huh, I found it. It wasn't stealing, was it, Daddy? I just found it in the dirt.
We'll skip that for a minute. What about going to the future?
There isn't any future, Mr. Holmes.
What's that?
It's kind of hard to explain. Even Star doesn't get it.
Oh.
But when she gets to be 6, like I am, she'll probably understand.
Well, try to explain it to me.
Well, it's all connected, just like the Mobius strip. If you go far enough, you'll get back to where it starts again. You start with the cavemen, then us men, then atomic men, the moon men, planet men, star men, and Brights. Only somehow...
What?
The Brights got off the strip. We haven't been able to find them any place in time.
I'd sure like to know how they got off and where they are.
Now, look, kids, this kind of thing can be dangerous. You might be eaten by a dinosaur or something.
Oh, we just ESP ourselves right out of there.
Well, anyway, I don't want you leaving this part of the time strip. Not again.
Daddy.
Now, I may be just a tween, but I'm your father.
I always mind you, Daddy.
Yeah? What about going off the block?
But, Daddy, we didn't cross a single street.
Nevertheless...
Pete, think of what you're doing. Pictures, specimens, recordings, not only from the past, but from the future. Pete, I beg you.
Jim, this is my daughter.
But what a contribution. We could be ages ahead of ourselves.
No. Star. Robert, I'd like your promise you won't leave present time again. Well?
Okay.
All right. Now run along. Robert's mother has some cookies and milk for you.
Okay. See you later, Daddy. Beat you there. That was a moon man.
Jim, I'm sorry.
Well, I suppose if I had a daughter...
Are you going to report this?
And have everybody give me the horse laugh? I may be just a tween, Pete, but I'm not an utter fool.
It took me almost 6 months to do it. I don't know how many times I visualized a cube and ESP'd it a half-twist and tried to seal the edges around me. And then once there was a flash, just for an instant. I was concentrating on Caesar's triumphant march into Rome. And for the briefest instant, there it was. I was standing on a roadway watching, and then it vanished. Hey.
Hi, Daddy.
What are you two characters plotting?
Nothing, Daddy.
Well, I'm going to my study for a while. Star,
Yes, Daddy.
you remember your promise about not leaving present time, don't you?
Yes, Daddy.
You going to keep it?
Yes, Daddy.
Okay. I'm holding you to it. Hello?
Hello, Pete. This is Ruth Howell.
Yeah?
Are the kids there?
No?
When did you see them last?
What time is it? Oh, about 10 this morning, 6 or 7 hours ago. Why?
Oh, Pete, I'm worried.
What's up?
Well, they were upstairs in Bobby's room. I was in the living room. Now, I could swear they didn't come downstairs, and yet, when I went up there, they were gone. That was over 5 hours ago.
Ruth, are you sure they didn't come down?
I was in that living room every moment. Pete, I'm
Now, Ruth, don't get panicky. I'm coming right over. Just don't get panicky. There wasn't a trace of them. Well, that isn't exactly true. Remember what Robert had said about Star leaving an ESP smudge? Well, I was able to catch it in Robert's room. It had something to do with where the Brights went when they got off the time strip. That's it, of course. They wouldn't disobey by leaving present time. But isn't it possible that there is more than one present time? Isn't it possible that another now coexists with ours? That's the clue, of course.
I'm going to call the police, Pete.
I don't think it'll do any good.
But we've got to find them. They'd have come back by now.
Yes, if they could.
What do you mean?
Nothing.
Well, what are you going to do?
I'm going back to my study to think.
To think? Aren't you going to look for them?
I have to figure out where to look.
Well, I'm not going to sit around doing nothing. I'm calling the police.
That was this morning. I've been doing some desperate concentrating since then, Jim. I'm writing this down so you'll know. I've already managed to go back to the time of Cheops and ahead to the time when men were navigating to distant planets in a matter of days. But the big job remains. How to get into a dimension parallel with our own at the same time. I figured out that to get the equivalent of a Mobius strip with depth, you must use the supercube, the tesseract. That's what I'm working on at the moment. If I succeed, there is a possibility I may not be able to get back. I hope you will be able to make Bill and Ruth Howell understand. Okay, now if I take 6 cubes and fold them in one another so that every angle is a right angle. Yes, all right, I've got that. And now if in folding, I ESP the tesseract, a half twist around myself.
Mr. Holmes? Mr. Holmes, are you in there? Mr. Holmes? We'll have to break in. It's locked from the inside. Mr. Holmes.
Pete! Pete, where are you? Pete!
That's funny. The door was locked from the inside, but here's his fountain pen with the ink still wet. But he's gone.
You have just heard X-1, presented by the National Broadcasting Company in cooperation with Galaxy Science Fiction Magazine, which this month features the final installment of Frederick Pohl's novel, Slave Ship, story of a world engaged in the wildest of all possible non-wars, where the order of the day was even wilder still. Spare every animal and throw the men to the wolves. Galaxy Magazine, on your newsstand today. Tonight, by transcription, X-1 has brought you Star Bright, a story from the pages of Galaxy written by Mark Clifton and adapted for radio by George Lefferts. Featured in the cast were Sarah Fussell, Lawson Zerbe, Bill Quinn, Billy Harris, Ralph Bell, and Kate Wilkinson. Your announcer, Fred Collins. X-1 was directed by Daniel Sutter and is an NBC Radio Network production.
In just a moment, X-1. But first, after a hard day's work, there's nothing more welcome than an evening of variety entertainment. And that's just the tonic provided tomorrow night by NBC Radio. You'll laugh your cares away when good-natured contestants carry out the rib-tickling stunts dreamed up by MC Jack Bailey on NBC's Truth or Consequences. And later on, Groucho Marx peps things up with lots of spontaneous good fun and more of the friendly insults at which he's so accomplished. For a brighter, livelier evening tomorrow night, it's Groucho Marx and Truth or Consequences on this station. And now, stay tuned for X-1 on NBC.
Have a nice trip. Your seat number is 15. Next, please.
Countdown for blast-off. X-5, 4, 3, 2, X-1, fire. From the far horizons of the unknown come transcribed tales of new dimensions in time and space. These are stories of the future, adventures in which you'll live in 1,000,000, could be years, on 1,000 maybe worlds. The National Broadcasting Company, in cooperation with Galaxy Science Fiction Magazine, presents
X minus 1.
Tonight's story, Jaywalker, by Ross Rocklin.
Intergalactic flight number 14 now loading at ramp 10. Intergalactic flight number 14 now loading at ramp 10. Please have your flight validation.
You walk from the waiting room down the long ramp number 10. The flight pack is in one hand, the validation papers in the other. Other passengers chatter behind you. You turn a corner, and there's the ship. A cylinder of glistening silver aimed at the moon. You feel yourself carried up the moving stair to the gaping entrance lock. A pretty stewardess in a blue uniform smiles at you.
Validation papers, please? Your papers, madam.
Oh, papers? Oh, yes, here they are.
Mm-hmm. Mrs. Marcia Foster. You feeling well, Miss Foster?
Yes, quite well, thank you.
We have to make sure. Once in a while, somebody slips aboard with another person's validation papers.
What difference would it make if I felt well or not?
A great deal, I'm afraid. You see, the effect of a free fall in space without gravity can do quite a bit of damage in certain glandular conditions. I see you've passed your physical.
Yes, I'm quite all right.
Fine. Have a nice trip. Your seat number is 15. Next, please.
You walk down the carpeted aisle to the plasticon seat. Her words make a ringing pattern in your brain. Are you feeling well, Mrs. Foster? Mrs. Foster's feeling quite well, thank you. Mrs. Foster has passed her physical examination. There's only one thing wrong with the picture. You are not Mrs. Foster.
Attention, please. Attention. In 1 minute, the flash walls will be raised around the ship. If for any reason a passenger is not feeling well or does not wish to make the trip, please speak up.
1 minute. You begin to wonder if you ought to go after all. You begin to think of how it happened. Why you're here, sitting in this silver vessel, waiting to blast off for the moon. What happened between you and Jack? What happened?
Honey, I'm back.
Jack, oh, darling. Oh,
You miss me?
did I miss you? Oh,
I brought you a little present from the moon.
what is it?
Open it and see.
All right, I will.
Try it on.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Took us 2 hours to pick it out.
Us?
Oh, me and Sue. Sue Egan.
Well, who's she?
Well, the stewardess on the ship.
Oh? Well, how long has she been on the Earth-Moon run?
Oh, I guess it's about a year now.
It's funny you never mentioned her.
Oh, haven't I? Well, what's the difference?
It just seems odd.
Hey.
What?
Well, you're not jealous, are you?
Is she pretty?
Oh, monstrous. 4 feet high and 3 feet around. And she has a big blue eye right in the middle of her forehead.
Oh, you're insane.
Come on, how about a kiss?
No.
Oh, lady, I've been away for 4 months.
Sorry.
I guess I'll just have to go back to Sue Egan and her 3 blue eyes.
Oh, in that case, here.
Oh. I have been away a long time.
Jack, I want to talk to you about that.
Okay. But could it wait till tonight? I am taking you to dinner, Mrs. McLean.
I'd rather talk about it now.
Okay.
Jack, we've been married for 6 years now.
Is it that long?
7 in July. For the last 2, you've been skippering that rocket to the moon.
I know.
3 weeks at a time, with only a week in between.
Well, I do get a month vacation
Jack,
besides.
that is no kind of life.
Oh, Marcia, I don't know what I can do about
You
it.
haven't tried to do anything about it.
I guess you're right.
Do you intend to try?
Marcia...
But I need to know.
Marcia, flying is my whole life.
But it isn't mine. I'm not going to spend 3 weeks out of 4 sitting here wondering if you'll come back alive.
Oh, now that's ridiculous.
Is it? What about my father who died on the Elsinore when it missed Mars?
Your father died as the result of a space maneuver that no pilot in his right mind would try.
They missed the planet. That could happen to anybody.
They missed it because they tried to warp the ship around.
I'm afraid I don't understand.
Well, it isn't very hard to understand. A spaceship takes off with everything calculated to the last decimal point. It has exactly enough fuel to take it to a planet if it follows an exact course, an ironclad mathematical orbit.
Well?
Well, there was a jaywalker aboard the Elsinore.
A jaywalker?
Well, that's what we call somebody who boards a ship knowing that he has no business doing so. In this particular case, it was a senator going to a convention on the moon. He had been taking endocrine treatments and kept it secret on his validation papers. He felt he had to attend this convention to muster some votes for his campaign. He didn't consider that he was jeopardizing his life.
Well, I still don't see how they missed the planet.
6 hours out, the senator began to die. The effect of the free fall on his glands was catching up with him. And the only way to reverse that effect is to reverse the spin of the ship, turn it end over end. That creates artificial gravity, reverses the stress on the glands. The pilot took a chance. He did just that.
Is that why they missed the planet?
They lost their trajectory. By the time they recalculated their course, they'd passed Mars. They ran out of fuel and kept going until they fell into the gravity of the sun.
And that couldn't happen today?
A pilot would have to be out of his mind to try a maneuver like that.
You wouldn't try it?
Risk an entire ship to save the life of one fool?
You wouldn't?
Well, Marcia, I can't say I definitely wouldn't. Right now, it's inconceivable to me.
Just as inconceivable for you to give up space flight for my sake.
Isn't it equally inconceivable for you to put up with it for my sake?
I've put up with it for 2 years. Jack, this is the end of it.
Now, what exactly do you mean by that?
I mean you have to decide whether you want a marriage and a family or a career as a space jockey.
Well, why do I have to decide? Why can't I have both?
Because I won't live this way. Nobody else does except a handful of wives whose husbands are crazy enough to have picked a profession like this.
Well, you knew this was my profession when you married me.
I didn't know it was like this.
Marcia, what you're asking me to do, I simply can't do. It wouldn't make you happy if I did. I'd just be walking around resenting you. Now, come on. Let's have dinner and forget this for a while.
No. We're not having dinner.
You'd rather stay home tonight?
No. I'm going to Los Angeles to my mother's house.
What?
I have tickets on the 6 o'clock flight.
Tonight?
Yes. Jack, I'm quite determined. I'd made up my mind that I'd put it to you squarely, and if you refused, I was leaving.
Just like that?
Yes. I've had all I can take.
Marsh, for heaven's sake, can't we talk this over and make some kind of a compromise?
There is no compromise, Jack. It's all very exciting for you, tearing back and forth to the moon with glamorous stewardesses and all sorts of celebrities, but sitting here waiting isn't much fun for me.
Well, you could get a job, you could develop some interest.
That isn't why I married you. I want a home and a family and a man who comes home every night and talks to me about little, unimportant things.
And I'm not that man.
No. No, you're not.
Okay.
What are you doing?
I don't like people walking out on me, so I'm leaving first.
Would you mind telling me where you'll be?
I don't know. You can reach me through Intergalactic if you change your mind. Marcia, maybe we'll both be better off. We didn't have much of a home life anyway, just the two of us. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. I know how you feel about not having children. Goodbye, Marsh.
There it was. You learned when you came back from Los Angeles 2 months later that he'd been seen in the company of one Susan Egan, stewardess for Intergalactic on numerous occasions. You learned, too, that he'd applied for the Earth-Venus run, the newest and most difficult run in the galaxy. And you learned something else, something that was going to change the whole course of your life.
Come in, Mrs. McLean. Sit down.
Thank you, Doctor.
I have some good news for you.
Yes?
You're going to have a child. Well, I thought you'd be happy about that.
Happy? Oh, yes. Yes, I am. Naturally. You debated for a long time, and then you called the Intergalactic office. Mr. McLean was out on the Earth-Moon run. He'd be back on the 12th, but only for an afternoon. He was taking off again immediately. They were so sorry. You were sorry yourself. It seemed as if life would not be worth living without Jack, especially now with a child on the way. You had to talk to him, to be with him. That was when you first began to formulate the idea of going to the moon with him on this run.
Attention, please. Attention. We're about to count down for blastoff. Fasten your seat belts and recline back as far as possible. The next sound will be that of the first stage rockets heating up. Do not be alarmed by the vibration of the ship.
From the bulkheads overhead everywhere comes the deep rumbling sound. Some of the passengers look anxious, some excited. Some leaf casually through magazines as they lie on their backs in the reclining seats.
Those of you who've never been in rockets will find it an experience that will make you proud to belong to the human race.
Countdown for blastoff. X minus 5, minus 4, minus 3, minus 2, minus 1, 0.
The rumble heightens. All emotion leaves you. Cold, ravening fear takes over. You try to close your eyes, your ears against it, but your mind won't respond. You look out the port, and the scene is suddenly splashed with a rushing sheet of flame that darkens the sky and is torn from your vision. Snatched away, the buildings, the trees, the roads vanish. A great, soft, uniform weight presses down on you. You push with all your might, but it smothers you, presses you back, drives your blood down, down inside of you. And then, quiet.
We are now 102 miles over New York City. You may unfasten your safety belts. The pull of gravity will no longer trouble you.
You unfasten the safety belt and sit in the seat, wondering what to do next.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to intergalactic flight number 14 out of New York Rocketport, destination Moon. I'm your hostess, Miss Susan Egan. Your pilot for this flight is Captain Jack McLean. Our position at the moment is approximately 550 miles above Earth, and in less than 1/2 hour, we'll be in free fall, completely without gravity. Our speed is currently 29,000 miles per hour. We should arrive at Moonport at exactly 6 p.m. tomorrow, Earth time. I wish you a pleasant voyage. If there's anything you need, Intergalactic is at your service.
Well, you think to yourself, everybody's here. Your husband, his loved one, and his wife. You watch her as she walks back along the rows of seats with an armful of the latest magazine reportings. A tall girl, about 29 or 30, dark brown hair, dark eyes, and not very pretty. The sort who would be able to talk to him about steam tubes and beautiful landings and solar storms.
Mrs. Foster, would you like something to read?
Oh, thank you, no.
First time in a rocket ship?
Yes, could you tell?
You look a little green. You feeling well?
Yes, I'm quite all right.
There's just a touch of space sickness. Come along to the ship's hospital and we'll fix you up in a jiffy.
No, I'd rather just sit here a minute.
Of course.
Oh.
Come on. Let me help you into the ship's hospital. That's it. Come on, take it easy. Now, come on. Now, you just lie down there. How are you feeling?
I'm scared.
There's nothing to be afraid of.
I think there is.
What is it?
I'm pregnant.
What?
I faked my validation papers.
Do you know what you've done to yourself?
I hoped it wouldn't affect me.
Isn't much I can say, Mrs. Foster. I'll have to tell the captain naturally.
But would it be... could I tell him myself?
If you'd rather, I'll call him. Stewardess to captain.
McLean, what is it, doll?
Jack, there's a passenger in the ship's hospital.
What's up?
You'd better come down here.
Well, look, Susie, I've got my course correction
I think you'd better come right down.
Okay. Charlie, take it, will you? I'll be right back.
He'll be here in a minute or two. Here, let me put this pillow under your head.
Thank you.
Now, what made you do it?
You wouldn't understand.
You loved him, and he's stationed on the moon, and you wanted to be near him. Is that it?
Could you understand that?
You mean not being able to have the man you love? Yes. I think I could understand it.
You wanted to scream at her, to claw at her face. She was going to live, and you were going to die. She was going to share a life with Jack when you were only a dim sort of memory in his mind. He came in, moving fast with that kind of schoolboy gait of his. His dark face was frowning, but handsome as ever.
Now, just why did you... Marcia, honey.
Hello, Jack.
Well, what are you doing aboard? Sue, this is my wife. Marcia, this is Sue Egan.
Oh, hello. I'll be getting out. Excuse me.
What's going on?
Jack, sit down. I want to tell you something.
I'd like to say something first, Marsh. I've had a chance to do a lot of thinking lately. And if you think we could work it out, I'd like to try again.
You mean that?
Yes, I do.
What about Miss Egan? Sue?
What about her?
Well, I heard.
I'm very fond of Sue.
Yes, I thought you were.
But she isn't my wife. You are.
Was.
What do you mean?
I'm going to die, Jack.
Marcia, what are you talking about?
Jack, I'm pregnant. You see, we're a little too late.
Did you know this when you came aboard?
Yes.
But weren't you aware that... What about the physical?
I used another woman's validation papers. I paid her for them.
Why, Marcia? How could you do a thing like that?
I don't know. All I knew was that I had to see you. I had to be with you.
If you'd only told me.
I couldn't reach you.
Didn't you know what would happen if you took a rocket flight?
I know. I thought somehow it wouldn't happen to me. I didn't know that pregnancy was affected.
And if you had?
I would have come along anyway.
I suppose in a way I'm to blame. I'm the one who walked out.
Don't take the blame on yourself. I'm over 21.
Marcia, what did you hope to accomplish by this?
I'm not sure.
There's only one possibility.
Possibility?
Yes, excuse me. Miss Egan.
Yes?
Come into the ship's hospital, please. Bring Petrocelli from maintenance. Tell him to come up here with a crescent wrench.
Yes, Captain.
What are you going to do?
Do? Nothing much. I'm going to warp the ship around, that's all.
Petrocelli was a big, easygoing man. Jack left me alone with him and Miss Egan while he went back to the control room. Petrocelli started to bolt a metal bed to the side wall of the cabin. Why are you putting the bed on the wall?
Because, lady, when he starts to spin the ship, that outside bulk is going to be down, not sideways. Centrifugal force, see?
I'm afraid I don't.
Well, that's too bad, because I got other things to do besides explain. Okay, Susie, it's all yours.
Oh, is he always that rude?
Doesn't it occur to you that maybe he's under a slight strain?
Strain?
Look, Mrs. McLean, your husband's going to warp the ship around. The chances of his pulling off a maneuver like that without piling us up in the sun or in deep space are about 1,000 to 1. I appreciate that you wanted to see him and show him that he ought to be ashamed of himself for leaving you, but does it occur to you that all of us may lose our lives because of it? Including Petrocelli?
No, I hadn't thought about it.
Let's go. I've got to strap you into that bed.
No, wait. What will happen to me if the ship isn't warped?
Sudden floods of the adrenal glands, convulsions, panics, spastic secretions, and eventually death.
What causes it?
Lack of gravity. We aren't sure just how. The purpose of spinning the ship is to press you up against the outer wall and create the effect of gravity through centrifugal force.
Do you think he can do it?
I think he's the best skipper in the intergalactic fleet.
That isn't the answer to my question. Can he spin the ship without killing everyone?
I have faith in him.
She loved him. She had faith in him. And you to whom he was married, you who carried his child inside you, did you have faith in him?
Everything set in here?
Yes.
Good.
Jack, could we talk alone for a minute?
Only a minute. We have to get the new data into the computers. Susie, will you excuse us, please?
Yes.
Well?
Jack, don't do it.
Marcia.
I mean it. You've no right to risk all those lives just for me.
Marsh, I'm captain of this ship. I do as I see fit, and I can't do otherwise.
But it isn't fair to them. It isn't fair to you.
When we're born into this life, we don't make any agreement that says everything is going to be fair and equitable.
I refuse to let you do it.
You can't stop me.
I'll take my life.
I'm going to ask Sue to stay with you.
What about her? Don't you love her? Well?
Marcia, whether I love Sue Egan is not the point just now. I've decided to spin ship to save you and my son. Or daughter. If it means risking the lives of others, I have to take that risk.
Jack.
Yes?
Why are you doing it?
Because I love you.
It seemed to me during the next hour through the haze of the drug they gave me that I could see him. There was the curved silver board. Before it sat Jack, hunched like a harried bookkeeper on the last day of the month.
Okay, Charlie. We'll come to the moon obliquely at 0.307. We pass it, stop, spin the ship over once to check speed. Then put the tail down when we feel gravity at 7.035. And if we can do it with the fuel we've got, it'll be a miracle. All right, start the calculators. Engine room, reverse tubes.
Reverse tubes.
Wait for new course vector 7073.
Ready for new course vector.
Set firing formula 2635726.
Firing formula ready.
Coming into course vector. Counting down. 7077. 76.
76.
75.
75.
74.
74.
73. Fire.
You don't recall much after that. There's the bulkhead pressing against you like a magnet, pressing harder and harder. Then there's the needle, and then sudden relaxation. Through it all, the stars and the moon and Jack and Sue Egan dance in a pattern of mist, and the words come back to you from long ago. The things he said to you when you were both in love many years ago.
When I fly the ship, it seems that all Earth watches me through your eyes.
A man comes to love the things he has to fight for, I guess.
How is she?
Hold tight, Marcia. Hold tight to me.
She calls you Marcia. This woman who hates you, who loves your husband, she calls you Marcia.
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 Oh.
Marcia.
The curved ceiling, but a new curve. And soft rose instead of chrome metal. A new feeling, unlike Earth or the ship.
Honey, wake up.
Oh. Jack?
It's all right, honey. We made it. We're on the moon.
Moon?
Yes. You're in the new Lunar City Hospital.
You did it. You really did it.
Well, I've been telling you for years that I was the best pilot in the fleet.
Oh, you don't have to pretend. I know how you must feel about what I did.
I'm not pretending.
I was a selfish coward. I wasn't concerned about anything but my own happiness.
Marcia, there isn't any absolute scale for courage or kindness or goodness. I couldn't pretend to judge you or anybody else. I only know that I believe you're a good person. And I love you. With your faults and your good points.
I just wanted to be with you, Jack. That's all I ever wanted. I'm sorry I'm not brave and strong like Susan or you or the others.
Oh, honey, nobody expects you to be. Come on now. You've got to save your strength. We've got to take good care of you.
He reaches down and touches your lips with his fingers. It's like a benediction. You know that you'll never again question his right to do the things that fulfill him. To take a silver ship above the earth and guide it to new planets. Our child will be born on the moon, you whisper to him. and our grandchildren in the stars.
You have just heard X-1, presented by the National Broadcasting Company in cooperation with Galaxy Science Fiction Magazine, which this month features the Arthur Sellings tale entitled One Across, the story of a man who thought that doing puzzles was an escape, until he suddenly found himself completely boxed in. Galaxy Magazine on your newsstand today. Tonight, by transcription, X-1 has brought you Jaywalker, a story from the pages of Galaxy written by Ross Rocklin and adapted for radio by George Lefferts. Featured in the cast were Bob Hastings, Terry Keane, Raymond Edward Johnson, Connie Lemke, and Eugene Francis. Your announcer, Fred Collins. X-1 was directed by Daniel Sutter and is an NBC Radio Network production.
Next week, the story of the journey that had no end, of a ship that had traveled so long through space that none aboard her could remember their destination or even wonder where they were going. Listen for The Sense of Wonder next week on X-1. The big news tomorrow centers around the tiny Principality of Monaco, where one of the century's most fabulous weddings will take place. And NBC Radio is on the spot to cover it for you. In the daytime, NBC's Weekday reports the civil wedding ceremony as it happens with simultaneous English translation.
Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe.